Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy Back show, where intimacy is real. If you desire to intimately connect with yourself, significant other, children, family, friends, community, and higher power, then this is the show for you. We explore intimate topics, inspiring life stories, spirituality, and insightful tips on strengthening relationships. The show is hosted by Dr. April and her co-host, Coach K. Let's get this episode of the Bringing Intimacy Back show started. We share with you today the secret power to intimacy to create the life you love or love the life you create. Now here's your host, Dr. April, and her co-host, Coach K.
Welcome to the Bringing Intimacy show, where intimacy is real. How are you doing, Coach K?
I'm doing amazing. And how about yourself?
Good. I'm so excited about we are in a new year.
Yes, a very fast moving new year.
Yes. And just when we start in the year, it's really good, I think, just refresh and to say, hey, yeah, what do I want out of this year?
Yeah, that is it. There's so many people that come in with their resolutions, which just can be pressurous, but yeah, like, what do I want to leave back there?
Mm-hmm.
I think if we lead with that versus I'm going to do this thing, and then we get caught into this, I'm not accomplishing my goal. What do I want to leave back there?
Right.
That's
And I like how you said, what do we want to leave back there? Because one of the things that we're going to talk about today that many people struggle with is negativity.
Yes, it's so easy to get caught into it. And once you're in that rapture, oh my gracious.
Yes. And so I'm excited that we are, and I love starting off the new year with, I know we talk about all forms of intimacy, but one of the most important one that's for me is that spiritual intimacy.
Yeah.
Yes. And so today we're actually starting off with breaking up with that enemy.
That's going to be a good one.
Yeah. And for many people, when I think about even just the terminology of enemy, many times that is also the things we say to ourselves, that negativity, the thoughts. And we all struggle with it.
We absolutely do, because it's just so easy. It is so easy to look at the darkest side of most situations and just sit there, because that's like the baseline, right? That's the very bottom. It's elevating above that takes the work. So I'm glad that that's something that we're talking about, especially walking into this. It's a new chapter. We turn the page.
Mm-hmm. We turn the page. Exactly. Yeah. And I love the topic of it says breaking up with the enemy, because sometimes we all get negative thoughts, and even sometimes things are, because I'm doing a lot of changes this year, and something will stop me or will say something in my thing, and I'll just say, get away. And I even sometimes, because of my faith, I'll say, get away, the devil,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I want to focus on what's good.
You have to. And real quick, I was going home. This was probably right before the new year. Driving, I was going to meet somebody at my building, and traffic was backed up in an area that's never backed up. And so I'm ready to say, what is going on? But I was like, you know what? Whatever. I'm right down the street from where I need to be. So I let that go. And as I'm driving, I realized I can't go straight because there's the police blocking the entire street. I can only get on the exit ramp. So as I'm going on the exit ramp, super slow, I look up and there's a gentleman up on the overpass, and he's threatening to jump.
Oh my God.
Yes. And so that's why I'm glad we're talking about this today, because this is that season. There are so many people that feel like things are so bad I can't fix, I can't do, I'm not good enough. Things are so bad that this person went up on a bridge and thought, there's nowhere else I can turn. I must be, I need to get away from this world. And so while I'm about to be angry about, I got to get to where I'm going, this person can't even function in life. So this is a very good topic for right now, because we're still in the midst of that season of negativity and those heavy thoughts. So I thought I'd share that story, and how quickly we have a choice, because I could have stayed angry and not cared what was going on, but something said, shake it off. It's not that bad. And so I did.
Right. And just being able to shake yourself out and being fully present and realizing, that there is so much other things to be thankful for, and that there is a man up there who's struggling. Because sometimes we believe everything our mind says.
Absolutely. And I felt compelled, like I wanted to go up there and say, hey, what's going on? But
Right.
And that happens every day in somebody's life.
Right, definitely. Where they're struggling. I mean, it happens to millions of people where they're struggling and they're saying, this is it, I can't take it anymore. But there's always hope. And we got to keep that in mind. As we know, every podcast we do a charity of the month. And this month we're looking at the charity called National Cervical Cancer Coalition, because many people, as we know, are struggling with cancer. And so this is a great organization and resource. If you're struggling with cervical cancer or you want to donate, please check this out. And now we're going to go take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk with someone I'm very excited, a pastor called Mike Manuel, and he's going to tell us how to break up with the enemy. We'll be back in a moment.
Are you seeking quality counseling for yourself or your loved ones? At Cape Coral Therapists in Sarasota, our skilled therapists specialize in children counseling, family counseling, couples counseling, and individual counseling. We provide personalized care for all ages, ensuring you receive the support you need. Open 7 days a week, we offer counseling in Spanish, Creole, Czech, and English, making quality care accessible to everyone. Contact us today and take the first step towards a brighter tomorrow.
Welcome. Yes, we'd like to welcome Pastor Mike Manuel. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Dr. April and Coach K. It's a privilege to be with you today.
Yes. Thank you so much. We're so excited to jump into this topic of breaking up with the enemy. Yes. One of the things that we ask a lot of our audience is, when we talk about intimacy, especially spiritual intimacy, what exactly does that mean for you?
Well, obviously it seems kind of multifaceted, but one thing I know that God created us to be in relationship with others. I mean, we're wired that way, and relationships are hard. Intimacy can be difficult, and it's difficult for a lot of reasons. And you both of you probably have more education on it than I do. But one thing I've learned is that, we have to be healthy individually before we can be healthy in an intimate way with others, whether it's spouse or family members or children or God, spiritually speaking. But we're wired to be intimate. We're wired to be in relationship. But because of hurts in life and being let down by people and hurt by people and just the things that come at us, a lot of times we back away from that because we don't want to be vulnerable. It feels unsafe sometimes to be intimate with others. And again, it can be another person or it can be God himself. It can be either one or all of the above. And so we know that relationships are important. We're wired to be that way. And God wants us to be in relationship with others and with him. And we just need to see how a way to be healthy in our relationship so that we can experience that intimacy.
Mhm. Yes. What what led you into becoming a pastor?
Well, it was not a career choice I was looking at. I'm what many people refer to as a second career pastor.
Okay.
I didn't start pastoring until I was 40 years old, and that was 24 years ago. And it wasn't anything I was looking to do. Honestly, it was the call of God. And I know, some people are going to get that, and some people are like, "Oh, that's that's hogwash." But God does speak to our heart and our mind. God does speak, and it's usually not an audible voice. I mean, I suppose there's somebody it could be, but he speaks to our heart and our mind, right, and our inner being. And it was just clear. I mean, I was living as a believer, as a Christian, but just wanted to I had my plan for my life, and I owned my own business, and he said, "I want you to be a pastor." And I'm like, wrong guy. I felt so ill-equipped. And honestly, I was, but God equips us to into the calling that He's called us. We all have a calling. He's got a plan for everyone. And He'll help you accomplish that if we look to Him and get equipped. So it was a call of God, and I knew it was either a yes or no answer. And eventually I said yes after some arguing with God. And it's what I've been built to do. It's the most fulfilling and yet most tiring thing I've ever done in my life.
Okay. Yes, and I can relate because I was a business person also. I'm a CPA, and God called me into the counseling world.
Yes.
Yes, so that I could relate to that
Yeah,
calling.
you know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. When I think of how you said this book of breaking up with the enemy, that for many people they struggle with all the messages
Yes.
that they get. Who is the enemy? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things so when I started pastoring, and I know this is going to sound kind of bad, but I'm just going to say it. A friend asked me after 6 months after I'd been pastoring, he said, "What has surprised you most about pastoring?" And before I could filter it, I just said, "People are more messed up than I thought." And I didn't mean it that mean, but people struggle a lot more than we would know, because a lot of that struggle's in silence, and they want to put on a mask, especially in the church. Especially they want to put on a mask, and everything's okay, and nothing to see here. And so a lot of that struggle is in silence, and and a lot of people look at a pastor as the preacher, and I certainly do that, but really most of my job is helping people. Helping people to be the person God's called them to be. And so that's really what I spent most of my time doing. But early on, it's like, I didn't realize how much help people need. I mean, I guess I've known that from my own life, but when you start, and both of you know this, when you start helping people, it can almost get overwhelming, the need.
Right.
And so I began almost immediately. I started contacting Christian counselors that I knew in the area or knew of, and kind of resourcing and referring, and that was helpful. But I realized early on that, and I don't know the percentage, but a large, I would say, great majority of issues were more spiritual issues. That did affect emotions. I mean, they were emotional issues, but they weren't clinical issues. Wow. Now, there are certainly clinical issues, clinical depression and schizophrenia. I mean, you go on and on and on, all kinds of things. But I come to find out that a lot of the negative emotions that we experience really have a spiritual root. And that was kind of a discovery I made, and then kind of went from there.
Yeah, I would definitely say that, in the sense of people don't know somehow when they're hurting.
Yes.
When people are hurting, and in this world we're going to hurt. I mean, that's just part of life. But when people are hurting, sometimes they just really want to hurt others. You know what I mean?
Yes. Well, we've said that a lot. Hurt people hurt people.
Exactly.
And that's, again, going back to the whole premise of your podcast, bringing intimacy back. There's an issue, the hurts that we carry, the pain that we carry, that emotional baggage, it totally affects relationship. And until we can get some help with that, get some relief from that, like you said, not every day is easy, and we are going to have some hard times. But I think we hurt a lot of our hurt. I'll just say it really doesn't need to be there, because we just don't know how to maybe deal with it or get rid of it.
Right. Or in some aspects, learn how to be resilient. And I think that's what sometimes spirituality does. It helps ground people. You understand what I'm saying? That it's not just about this world.
Yes.
Taking it a step further, back to the basics. Many people don't. First step is just speak up about it.
Yeah.
You hurt my feelings, but I'm just going to hold that in and take it with me and just let that fester. And as we know, once something starts festering, it just grows. So everything that person does now is just adding to the fire, instead of just, hey, you hurt my feelings, I didn't like what you said, or whatever. Take that, let it out. So just that basic step, we're missing that because we're scared to hurt someone's feelings. It's okay to get your feelings hurt, but we don't want to hurt anyone else's feelings.
Yeah.
Right. And to take it a step further, Coach K, instead of us dealing with it and feeling it, we pour things on it, whether it's alcohol, another form of addiction of some sort. Yeah. Instead of feeling it and knowing that this too shall pass.
Yeah. You treat the symptom rather than the problem.
Right.
And really, Coach K, what you're talking about is offense, and of course, as a pastor, I come at this from a biblical view, and but Jesus taught on that. He said, it's impossible that no offenses will come. He said that. That's a quote from him. And then I'm going to paraphrase from here, but he said, and again, I'm paraphrasing, he said, kind of what's key is how you handle that offense. If you take it on and sort of internalize it, again, I'm kind of paraphrasing, that's where the problem comes. And we don't deal with it. We internalize it and we carry that offense. And again, that's a real barrier in relationships and intimacy.
Yeah.
You start creating stories, and then it gets bigger and bigger, and then unfortunately you start bringing other people into it.
Yes.
So it gets even worse from there. So that can be, it's we do have to get rid of that fear of speaking up for ourselves, the same way we would speak up for our neighbors.
Right. Well, sometimes because we have that fear, kind of dovetailing on what you just said, Coach K, is sometimes we start building coalitions of that offense. Like, okay, who else will join me in this offense? And some people, they're almost looking for other people's offense that they can join and start a coalition against someone. And that, because I think there's a fear of, I don't know, or maybe there's some sort of, I don't know what the word would be, but they feel better if there's other people feeling the same way they feel. They feel validated. Maybe that's the reason, the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. And so how do people know who or what to listen to? Like, kind of going back with Coach K, it's like you have these group of people here, then you have the media telling who you are and all this other stuff and your thoughts and your mind and, and speaking to people, and even when they pray, and I said, what is God talking to you? They're like, I don't know. I just have so much stuff, which goes back to, breaking up with the enemy.
Well, and when I started, again, working with people as a pastor and realizing that a lot of this was spiritual in nature, and even, learning more and more, studying it biblically, reading books that others had written and talking about others' experiences, and that we have an enemy, there are lots of, we have lots of enemies. Sometimes our worst enemy is ourself.
Exactly.
But again, coming from this pastoral viewpoint, from a biblical viewpoint, I believe the teachings of Jesus. I believe Jesus. I believe he was real. I believe what he taught, and he said that he believed that the demonic realm was real, and I believe that. Now I know that can be controversial, but it's biblical. That's what I'll say. And Jesus believed that. He said, Matthew 10:8. He said, you're going to have to deal with this, and he gave us the power and authority to deal with it. And the Bible, 1 Peter 5:8 says, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The enemy, the devil, who's real, according to Jesus and the Bible, and which I believe, hopes that people think he's not real. Because he's mad at God, and his main way to get back at to God is to hurt God's children. If you have children, it's one thing to mess with you. You start messing with your kids, now now you got me. And the devil knows that relationships are important. The devil knows that we were created to be in relationship, first and foremost with God, and then with each other. That's where we find fulfillment. And the devil knows if he can damage relationships, if he can pry them apart, whether it's from God or other people, and kind of separate us off from the herd, so to speak, get us lonely and isolated, that's right where he wants us. And he'll do whatever it takes for that to happen. And we can talk more in a minute, how does he do that, and why does he even have the authority to do that? We can talk about that in a minute, but that's his goal. That's what he wants to do. And so the book, Breaking Up with the Enemy, that's who the enemy, for the sake of this book, is. It's the enemy because he wants you to not be in relationship, not only with God, but also with other people.
Right. I was just thinking about the gentleman that Coach K was talking about, the man who was on the bridge about to jump. He was more than likely feeling extremely lonely. And loneliness is something that Americans struggle with, even though we have all this technology and stuff.
It's getting worse. Social media, I think, has exacerbated loneliness. I think it's made it worse for two reasons. Number one, we don't do a lot of face-to-face, and it's easier to not be honest in a text or in a social media post. In fact, you look at everybody else's social media post, it looks like they're living the dream. Everybody's living the dream on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, except you. And you get this skewed idea of everybody's thriving except me, and that doesn't help.
Yeah, and then when we get so lonely, we can only see what's in our mind.
Yes,
and we have to be careful. I mean, it's Proverbs. We have to be careful about what we.
Yes.
Yes. So what are the steps to, and you don't have to tell us all because we want people to read the book, but what are the steps to breaking up with the enemy?
Well, I try not to get too preachy here or talk too long, but here's what I've discovered, again, biblically, and that's where I'm coming from as a pastor and a teacher of the Bible and a follower of Jesus. That's where I'm coming from. The devil, like we said, is real. Jesus said he's real, but he's limited in power. And one of the things that that the Bible teaches is that Jesus defeated Satan on the cross by his death and resurrection. It's like, okay, well, if that's true, then why are we even talking about him? I mean, why are we having to deal? Why are we having to deal with this? Because the Bible says, Jesus said this in John 10:10. He says, the thief, that's obviously the devil, the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I come to give you an abundant life. And so why is it even going on? I'll try to make this as quick as I can. At the very beginning of creation, in the book of Genesis, God gave mankind authority on this earth. He said, be fruitful, multiply, have dominion over the earth. God made the earth. He made the universe. He's the God. It's his deal. But for whatever reason, in his sovereignty, and he is sovereign, he's given us, mankind, power and authority on this earth. He's given us free will, which the reason he gave us free will, I'm going to take a quick side note because this has to do with relationships. God's highest ideal is love. The Bible says he is love. He created us for him to love us and us to love him and for us to love each other. Because as you know, a real, sincere, genuine, loving relationship, there's nothing better than that. I mean, that's where our fulfillment really comes from. But sometimes that can seem elusive. So for us to have that, love demands that there be a choice. God had to create us with free will in order that we could love. Because as you well know, you can't make somebody love you. You can't coerce somebody into love. It has to be a choice. It has to be a decision. And so we have to have free will, because if love is God's highest ideal, which it is, then we have to have choice. We have to be able to choose love. We have to be able to do that. But God also knew that we would use our free will to do some boneheaded things. We would not always use our free will to love others. We could actually use our free will to hurt others and make choices, and even to not choose God and whatever. So going back to creation, he gave mankind authority on this earth. The only power, the devil, or what we call the enemy, the only power he has in our life is the power of our agreement. That's the hugest. That's not a very good. That's not good grammar. That's the biggest point probably that will help people. The only power the enemy has to bring all these negative thoughts, because those voices in your head, you're not schizophrenic. That stuff that's going, that noise in your mind, a lot of that is the enemy speaking to your mind. Can't read your mind, but he can speak to your mind and trying to beat you down and separate you and hurt your relationships. The only power he has is the power of influence. He can't do whatever he wants. And he wants to lie to you. He wants to give you enough truth that things seem plausible. Then he wants to put a twist on it and hope that you'll act on that and follow, I guess, agree with him. And you think, well, we wouldn't agree with the enemy. Well, Adam and Eve agreed with Satan in the Garden of Eden. He said, God, you can eat whatever you want. God says, no, you just can't eat of that tree. So they ate of it. They disagreed with God, agreed with Satan. And when you agree with Satan, you empower him. And people would think, well, I would never agree with Satan. I would never agree with the devil. But we do all the time, unknowingly, unwittingly. Here's a simple biblical example. The Bible says, this is the day the Lord has made. I'll rejoice and be glad in it. It doesn't mean that every day is going to be easy, but it does mean that even in difficult days, we can have hope. Even in difficult days, we can have peace. And it's God's desire that we have a good life, that we have an enriching life and a fulfilling life full of peace, hope, and joy. The enemy tries to come in and wreck that. So anyway, that's God's will, and that's what he wants for us. And Proverbs 18:21 says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. I used to think that just meant, say nice things, don't say mean things. And it does say that, but it's much more powerful. Going back to what I said earlier from the creation, and then Jesus affirmed this in Matthew 16, that mankind has power and authority on this earth. Our tongue has power. When we speak words, there are two entities in the supernatural realm looking to partner with our words: God and the devil, the demonic realm. And when we speak according to God's will, God is there like, thank you for speaking that. I'm here to partner with you to help that happen. There's actually a word for that in the Bible. It's called prayer. Did you ever wonder why God asks us to pray? Because if he knows what we need, and he does, then why do we need to pray? Well, because he's given us power and authority on this earth, and he wants us to have some responsibility and take some responsibility on this earth. We've abdicated so much of that responsibility, or we get lazy, or I don't know. We're just thinking, well, God's God and he'll do it. If he wants to do it, if he doesn't want to do it, he doesn't want to do it, whatever. Like, no, he's given us management, so to speak, I guess, some responsibilities on this earth, and to use our free will for good and not bad. And so when we speak according to God's will, he's there to supernaturally partner with that and help it to have it happen. That's why prayer works. Now, conversely, if we speak against God's will, against God's ways, which includes negativity, the enemy is right there like, thank you, that's all I needed. Because he can't do whatever he wants. He's limited, he's defeated. But because we have power and authority on this earth, we're the ones that empower the enemy. I think you're hanging with me so far. So a lot of what, let me say this first. We don't need the devil to muck up our life. We can do it. We can do a great job ourselves. However, the things we speak against God's will in agreement with the enemy actually empower the enemy. So a lot of what people are dealing with is not just junk. It's actually almost a supernatural. I'm not saying they're possessed, but there's a demonic component to it. I guess that's what I'm saying. And because the enemy wants to break relationships in your life. He wants to get you in a place of loneliness. He wants to get you a place of separation. Maybe it's through guilt and shame, or maybe it's 100 other things. And the Bible talks about this. He's actively at work to do that. But his only power is when we agree. And the problem is we're agreeing and we not even know that we're doing that. And so the premise of the book is, okay, number one, you got to know that. And then number two, you got to start breaking those agreements. Like, okay, enemy, that agreement I made through this negativity and all this stuff I've been speaking, like, I break that agreement because you have power and authority on this earth, God said, and Jesus reiterated in Matthew 16. So that same authority that got us kind of entangled with the devil is the same authority that gets us unentangled. It's the same authority and he has to obey because he's defeated by Jesus on the cross. And so we as humans, we have so much power in sort of the supernatural realm that we don't even know of, both for positive and negative. And so just becoming aware of that, I think, is probably the biggest thing. And in my book, Breaking Up with the Enemy, the first probably third or half of the book is teaching this awareness, and from here it is in the Bible, look for yourself. But then the last half or 2/3 is like, okay, now how do you cancel those agreements with the enemy? How do you break free from this past of living with that baggage? And how do you not only get rid of that baggage, but now how do you step into a place of peace? How do you step into a place of hope? How do you get hope back in your life and joy? Because if there's one thing I know, America, well, I suppose it's all over the world, but I'm in America, hope is elusive. And so many people are living with diminished hope. And that's a sad, hard place to be. And so I just want to encourage anybody watching or listening to this, is that there is hope for you. The Bible says your hope will not be cut off. And God wants to give you hope, real hope, not pipe dream, but real hope. But the enemy wants to steal your hope, and he'll do whatever it takes to do that.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. And so, Mike, if there are people out there listening and they want to have more hope and get in contact with you or read your book, where could they go?
Yeah, my book's on Amazon, Breaking Up with the Enemy, How to Reclaim Peace, Hope, and Joy, How to Defeat the Devil's Deceit and Reclaim Peace, Hope, and Joy. So it's on Amazon. Also, I have a website that's got a link to a couple of books I've written, but my latest book. But I also have a lot of free resources, some online courses and blogs and videos and all that kind of stuff. Moda Ministries MOTA. MOTA stands for Ministry One to Another. Because as followers of Christ, and just human beings on the earth, we need to learn how to minister to one to another. And oftentimes we just look to a clergy person or somebody else as like, no, we're called to minister one to another. So that's where that name came from. So it's motaministries.com.
Well, that is awesome to hear. And I thank you so much for being here, sharing all of your information. And we all know where we can find you. So here's to a good New Year's for you. And we will be right back, everybody.
Are you wanting a vacation in paradise? Vacation to reignite the passion, the desire in your relationship? Vacation counseling is just for you. We are deeply committed to your success as a couple. Our couples counseling retreats are exclusive, effective, and intimate. At Vacation Counseling, you will benefit from a combination of couples counseling, intimacy counseling, and individual counseling while you and your partner enjoy a relaxing vacation in sunny Southwest Florida. If you are interested in vacation counseling, please visit us at vacationcounseling.com for more information on prices and packages.
Welcome back to the Bringing Intimacy show. Yeah, that was so powerful.
It was really good. A lot of good references. And I think it just, it kept it very basic where anyone that's listening could follow along and understand that. And I think just the concept of saying, breaking up with the enemy, I think that should be the thought process, honestly, for the remainder of anyone's life until they have left all of those things that don't serve them and don't lift them up in the past. Leave it where it is.
Right. And he really talked a lot about the spoken word.
Yes. And how way powerful. When he was talking, it made me think of, when you were talking about people utilize alcohol and other addictions to kind of to mask all of that hurt. I think about someone who may have those voices that's saying, someone so hurts you, forget them. If they're close by, you should just go and do this or do, you have those rage thoughts sometimes when you're angry. And when you add alcohol or other drugs or anything that can alter the mind, it really can lower that judgment.
Mm-hmm.
And you will just go and do it. And you'll hear so many people who, in a sober brain and a sober tongue, say, a 10-minute decision when I was drinking completely changed my life. And now I have a prison record, or I've done something that I cannot reverse back. So when you're angry, I would say, don't add to anything that will alter your thoughts in that moment. It's easy to want to mask it. I encourage you and I challenge you. Feel that pain. Allow all of that to simmer through your body so you can understand what it feels like. Because A, you never want to feel like that again. B, you probably don't want someone else to feel like that again. And C, you are experiencing whatever situation it is, and you're going to learn how to move beyond it without the additives, because the additives will not allow you to really walk yourself through it and come out with a reasonable resolution that won't change your life for the worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And another thing that I would suggest, which Pastor Mike Manuel was talking about, was also the Word, the Bible. And inside there's thousands of stories of how people deal with XYZ. And you may think, well, that was way back in millions of years ago. But really, those stories, when you read them and you really identify and sit there and take it in, they're the same stories as today. Yeah, where we're heartbroken. Maybe someone stole from us. Maybe something happened to us that, it wasn't our fault, looking at Job. just a variety of stuff.
Absolutely. It's the same story, different year.
Yes, yes. And so what we're hoping, and as he said at the end, which I just said the word, hope is critical. And there is hope out there if you're suffering.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, of course, that was an amazing show. And we have even more that are coming up.
Yes.
So on next week, January 16th, we have Keys to Developing Self-Confidence with Shane Jacob. On January the 23rd, we have Intimacy Prescription, Healing Through Connection with Jen Johnson. And then on January the 30th, Your Guide to Ethically Non-Monogamous Relationships with Lauren Hayes. And then we're going to kick off February on the 6th with Discover Your Hero in Hiding with Mark Collins. Great shows coming up.
Yes. So if you've missed any of this, please definitely go back and listen to Reverend Mike Manuel. And like I said, he has a great book called Breaking Up with the Enemy, which can be found on Amazon. So we'll see you guys next week. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Bringing Intimacy Back, where intimacy is real. You can also find us at bringingintimacyback.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Dr. April Brown's 7-book series, Improving Intimacy, is now on Amazon. We'll see you next Thursday at 3:30 p.m. Don't forget to follow, share, and subscribe.